Hello everyone, welcome to the Learning Notebook. Today we are continuing our series Computer Fundamentals, and this is Lesson 4. In this lesson, we will learn about the secondary memory. But before we begin, make sure to watch the previous lessons from the Computer Fundamentals for Beginners playlist. Now, let's get started.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our agenda for today's class. We're going to cover an introduction to secondary memory, explore its characteristics and types, do a primary versus secondary memory comparison, weigh the advantages and limitations, discuss its importance, and then we'll wrap it all up with a quick recap quiz.
All right, Section 1, Introduction to Secondary Memory. So imagine you're working on a massive project, right? You absolutely need a secure place to keep all your hard work safe for weeks or maybe even years. Primary memory just isn't designed for that kind of long-term safety. That is exactly where secondary memory comes in. You might also hear it called auxiliary or external memory, and it's basically used for storing huge amounts of data and programs permanently for future use. I like to think of it this way. Your RAM, your primary memory, is kind of like your active desk workspace. It's awesome for right now, but it's temporary. Secondary memory, on the other hand, is like a massive, heavy-duty steel filing cabinet sitting right in the corner of your office. It keeps absolutely everything safe, even when the power gets completely cut.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we move into Section 2, Characteristics and Types.
Let's walk through what actually makes secondary memory so unique. The absolute biggest, most crucial characteristic here, it's non-volatile. Okay, so what does that mean? It's basically a fancy way of saying that when you pull the plug or turn the power off, your data doesn't just poof and disappear, it stays right there. It also has a really large storage capacity, giving you plenty of room for all your files. But because it's so massive, accessing that data is a bit slower than primary memory. The trade-off, though, is that it's much cheaper per gigabyte than RAM. You'll see it used all the time for backups and permanent storage. And finally, the CPU doesn't access it directly, which is exactly why it takes just a split second longer to fetch your files.
Now, secondary memory generally falls into three really cool categories. First up, magnetic storage. This is the older, trusty magnetic tech. We're talking hard disk drives, or HDDs, that you'd find inside laptops, plus things like magnetic tape and floppy disks used for backups. Second, there's optical storage. This uses laser technology to read and write data. Pretty neat, right? This includes CDs, DVDs for your favorite movies, and Blu-ray discs. They're super portable and cheap to make. And lastly, solid-state storage. This is the fast, modern stuff. Think solid-state drives or SSDs and pen drives. They're incredibly fast and highly durable, because get this, there are literally no moving parts inside them at all.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we jump into Section 3, primary versus secondary memory.
Let's put them heads ahead. For access, primary memory is accessed directly by the CPU, whereas secondary memory is indirect. Speed. Primary is lightning fast, but secondary is naturally slower. For storage, primary is pretty limited, but secondary, massive, large storage. Then there's volatility. Primary is mostly volatile, so if the power dies, you lose the data. But secondary is non-volatile. It's safe. Cost-wise, primary is quite expensive to produce, which makes secondary the much cheaper alternative. So, the main takeaway? Primary is for temporary processing, and secondary is your go-to for permanent storage needs.
Moving right along to Section 4, Advantages and Limitations.
You know, every piece of technology has its trade-offs, but the advantages here are absolutely game-changing. Secondary memory stores huge amounts of data efficiently. It gives you permanent storage for all your files, meaning your photos and documents are always right there when you get back. It's incredibly useful for backups, literally a lifesaver against data loss. It's also a highly cost-effective storage solution. And best of all, your data can be accessed and reused anytime you want.
But we definitely need to understand its limitations too. The primary drawback? It has a slower access speed compared to RAM. When you open a huge program, that loading time is your computer working hard to pull data from secondary memory. Also, it requires a physical device, like an external drive. And because it's physical, it needs proper handling so you don't accidentally cause physical damage. Drop a mechanical hard drive and you could lose everything. Plus, because it's not directly used by the CPU, there's a built-in processing delay.
So, the crucial point is coming up in Section 5, Importance and Conclusion.
To wrap up this part of the lesson, why does this all matter? Well, secondary memory stores your operating system and software permanently. Without it, your computer literally wouldn't know how to boot up. It keeps user files safe for long-term use, provides critical backups for your data, and gives us the physical means to transfer data between completely different systems. Basically, its massive capacity and safety make it the absolute essential safety net for modern computing.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 6, our quick recap quiz.
All right, let's see what you've retained today. Question 1. Secondary memory is also known as A. Main memory, B. Primary memory, C. Auxiliary memory, or D. Cache memory. I'll give you a second to think about it.
And the correct answer is C, auxiliary memory. Great job if you got that. Remember, it acts as an external or auxiliary helper to the main memory.
Okay, let's keep the momentum going. Question 2. Secondary memory is used for A. Temporary storage, B. Permanent storage, C. Processing data, or D. Input control. Lock in your guess.
The correct answer is B. Permanent storage. Just like that heavy-duty filing cabinet we talked about, it's built to keep things safe for the long haul.
Here's question 3. Which of the following is secondary memory? Is it A, RAM, B, ROM, C, hard disk, or D, cache? Think back to our magnetic storage examples.
The correct answer is C, hard disk. Awesome! RAM and cache are both types of primary memory.
Question 4. Secondary memory is A, volatile, B, non-volatile, C, temporary, or D, inside CPU. This was the absolutely crucial characteristic regarding power loss.
Yep, it's B, non-volatile. When the power goes off, your data stays perfectly intact. No worries there.
And our final practical question. A student saves files permanently on a computer. This is stored in A. RAM, B. CPU, C. Secondary memory, or D. Cache.
The correct answer is C, secondary memory. So that was it for today's lesson. I hope you found this class useful and learned something new about personal computers. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for upcoming lessons in our Computer Fundamentals series. In the next class, we will study input and output devices. Until then, stay tuned, stay healthy, and happy studying. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.